The Prophet ﷺ says in an authentic hadith, إِذَا كَانَ أَوَّلُ لَيْلَةٍ مِّن شَهْرِ رَمَضَانَ صُفِّدَتُ الشَّيَاطِينَ وَمَرَدَتُ الْجِنِّ. The Prophet ﷺ says, when the first night of Ramadan enters upon you, صُفِّدَتُ الشَّيَاطِينَ وَمَرَدَتُ الْجِنِّ. The first thing that Allah does is He removes the influences. He removes the major devils, the most aggressive of the jinn away from you, and puts them in chains. So you're on this path now, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala restrains those shayateen from being able to influence you the way that they would be able to influence you throughout the year. What does that mean? Allah has given you power over the shayateen throughout the entire year. Inna ibadi laysa laka alayhim min sultan illa man ittaba'aka min al-ghawin. Allah says in the Quran, you have no control or authority over my servants except for those who follow you willingly. And the call of the shaitan is, وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرَهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ. You will find that most of them will not be grateful people. So you have the power to put your shaitans in chains throughout the entire year, figuratively, by not obeying them and by reducing them and by sustaining yourself with the gratitude of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For the one who recognizes the blessings of Allah upon him will not find in himself the indecency to sin knowingly and consistently, majorly or minorly. You won't find that indecency within yourself because you know the gratitude, you know the blessings of Allah upon you, and you're grateful to Him for them. But in Ramadan, Allah pulls them further back. And Allah makes you more aware of your blessings. So while Allah feeds you with shukr, with gratitude throughout the day, through just the very act of fasting, which should increase that gratitude, Allah also reduces the influence of the shayateen, so they become weaker than they already are. They were already weak, but now they're weaker. Now they're really reduced. So if you think about this, Jannah is there. It should be common sense that if there is paradise and I need to get to paradise, then no influence should get in the way. But the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that essentially what keeps us away from Jannah is not a lack of good deeds. It's our inability to get out of our own way and our following another path. Allah has already placed us on that path to get back home. We just have to make sure that we don't take a detour and get away from that path. So the very first thing the Prophet ﷺ mentions here is that the shayateen are restrained. You have no excuses now. You can't blame the influences. The influences have been reduced in ways that they will not be reduced throughout the entire year. It starts with that. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, وَغُلِّقَتْ أَبْوَابُ النَّارِ فَلَمْ يُفْتَحْ مِنْهَا بَابٌ. This is beautiful. The gates of hellfire are closed, and not a single one of their doors will be opened. Not just غُلِّقَتْ أَبْوَابُ النَّارِ. The gates of hellfire are closed, and not a single one of its doors will be opened. You don't need to be tempted. And if you just think about this, by the way, the sins that we struggle with and the bad habits that we struggle with in Ramadan are leftovers from that which comes before Ramadan. You're not going to be more tempted by sin and disobedience in Ramadan than you are outside of Ramadan. What I mean by that is that your urges to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not increase inside of Ramadan. That's not going to happen. Most people don't suddenly take up a new sin in Ramadan. Right? You don't start doing something that you weren't doing before in Ramadan in terms of sin. That's very unusual and unlikely. Instead, you have a hard time kicking the previous habits. So no new door of hellfire will be opened. The doors will not be opened for you to sin. You just need to properly let go of the old ones and make strides and make way in Ramadan. And the greatest accomplishment in Ramadan that you can possibly have, beyond the recitation of the Quran, beyond the amount of prayer that you do, is to kick those bad habits. And that should be the greatest metric that you have in Ramadan. The number one thing you need to ask yourself is, how much distance have I put between myself and those sins that were holding me back? That is going to be the standard for success, because as Umar ibn Abdul Aziz rahimahullah said, taqwa is not fasting long days and praying long into the night. Taqwa is tarkul ma'asi, is abandoning the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, abandoning the bad habits. Everything beyond that is excellence, is ihsan. So this is where you start, and this is your standard of success.